Welcome back to another edition of Factoring with Mr. Longo. This video is going to cover the sum and difference of cubes. Back in the day, you learned how to factor by the difference of squares. That's if you had a binomial that both perfect squares with a minus sign in the middle. Now you can do the sum and difference of cubes. There was no sum of squares, but if you have two perfect cubes that are added or subtracted, you can factor them. And there's a pattern that you need to know. So if we were to just say here are our two terms, we have a cubed and b cubed. We're going to show you the pattern for the sum and difference. But basically what you want to do is take the cube root of the first term and put it here. And you take the cube root of the second one and you put it here. And then I want to let you know this is going to be a plus sign. But then over here you're going to have a minus sign and a plus sign. This is a pattern that you have to have memorized. So what you do is you take your first term and you put it in the first spot, but you square it. So now you take A and you square it. Then you take B and you square it and put it on the end. But now the last part, what we're going to do here is you multiply these two together. So A times B is AB. That is the pattern. Now I will tell you that in the difference, you still have an A and a B. You still have an A squared, an AB, and a B squared. The difference is the signs. This time it's going to be a minus sign, a plus sign, and another plus sign. So how do you memorize those? SOP. It's always going to be the same sign as the equation, the opposite sign from here, and this last one is always plus. Same, opposite, plus. That's the pattern you need to know. So now, let's go use it. For the first example, this is difference. So you might want to just set it up. Little guy, big guy. Same sign, opposite sign, always a plus sign. Take the cube root of x cubed and you get x. Take the cube root of 8 and you get 2. Take your first term and square it, put it in the first spot. Take the second term and square it, put it in the last spot. Multiply 2 times x, and you're done. That's it. You are finished. You cannot go any further. This cannot be factored. All you have to do is use the pattern, and you will be good to go. So why don't you pause the video and try the next example on your own. Click play when you're ready. So again, we have our pattern of small parentheses and a big one. Same sign, opposite sign, plus sign. The cube root of 8x cubed is a 2x. Square it, put it over here, 4x squared. The cube root of 27 is 3. Square it, put it on the end. 2x times 3 is 6x. I know 2x times 3 is positive 6x, so why is it negative here? Again, you don't get to mess with the pattern. Same sign, opposite sign, plus sign, and you are good to go. All right, so now we're going to take it up a level. Same thing we've always done before. The only difference is when you solve, after you factor it, you have to set them equal to 0 and solve for x. I would like you to press pause and try just the first one, and we'll see what happens. All right, let's see if you actually got this on your own. I'll be pretty impressed because I know where you're going to stop. So obviously these are the sum of cubes. So same, opposite, plus 2x, square it, 4x squared. Cube root, 1, square it, 1. Multiply the two together, 2x. And now what you are supposed to do is you're supposed to solve. Set each one equal to 0. Well, if we do that, we set this equal to 0. 2x plus 1 equals 0, and you get x is equal to negative 1/2. But if you do that for this, 4x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 0, remember, you can't factor that anymore. And now you probably just left it there and said prime, but remember, we don't get to say prime. If you can't factor it, you just use one of your other skills. In this case, I'd probably use the quadratic formula. So what I would do is I would just say b squared minus 4ac and opposite b plus or minus, all that fun stuff. So let's go do that. The opposite of a negative 2 is 2 plus or minus a big old square root. B squared minus 4 times a times c. And that's all over 2 times a, which is 4. Okay, and then we move on. 2 plus or minus square root. Negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times 4 times 1 is a negative 16. All over 8. Keep it going. 2 plus or minus. We have a negative 12 on the inside, all over 8. 2 plus or minus 2i root 3, all over 8. Final answer. We would have 1 plus or minus I root 3, all over 4. Okay, so everything we learned in the last unit, including the quadratic formula or solve by completing the square, all of that stuff is still fair game. So make sure you are good to go with it, okay? So now that you just saw me do one of these examples the real way, you go right ahead and try the next one on your own, and we'll see if you got it correct. Give it a shot. First thing you should have done is factor out a 2x, leaving you with x cubed minus 64. And that's equal to 0. 2x, and then we have an x minus 4, and then x squared plus 4x plus 16 after you do the difference of cubes. So then you're going to have x is equal to 0 and a positive 4, and now we need to go play with that guy. Now you could use the quadratic formula if you want, because that's what I used in the last one, or you can do difference or completing the square. So x squared plus 4x plus half of 4 is 2 squared is 4. That's equal to a negative 16 plus 4 as well. So then this guy over here, we have an x plus 2 quantity squared is equal to a negative 12. Square root both sides. X plus 2 is equal to a plus or minus 2i root 3. Subtract 2 from both sides, and you have x is equal to a negative 2 plus or minus 2i root 3. And of course, we also have our 0 and 4. So x is equal to a 0, 4, and a negative 2 plus or minus 2i root 3. So if you think about it, plus or minus, that's 2 solutions, 1 solution, 1 more solution. That's 4 total solutions. There you go. There's your x to the 4th. If you go back over here, this one, we had x cubed, so we had our negative 1/2, and this. So we would actually say we should have 1 plus or minus. That's 2 solutions because of the plus or minus, and also the negative 1/2. All right, so that is sum and difference of cubes. Remember, just because something is prime doesn't mean it can't be solved. That's what the quadratic formula and completing the square are used for. This is Longo, and I'm out. See you, bye.